What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second album by rock band Marcy Playground. Basically, this product is called Shapeshifter, and it came out in the fall of 1999. So the thing about this particular product was this is the follow-up to their hit album, the 1997 self-titled album Marcy Playground. As far as that pitch can happen, it had some hit singles on there like St. Joe on the School Bus, Sex and Candy, and like Sherry Frazier. As far as that particular pitch kind of went, it was kind of a relatively novel album for 97, 98. Definitely the song Sex and Candy continues to get airplay even on modern rock radio today, I would definitely have to say. But the concept of that particular album is just the fact that Marcy Playground was kind of seen as like a one-hit wonder. Sex and Candy was definitely a staple of late 90s, early 2000s rock radio as far as that pitch can happen, but they didn't really have a follow-up single. St. Joe on the School Bus got a little bit of airplay, but for the most part, it was easily seen as like the secondary song compared to the rest of it. Most of the appeal was in the hit single Sex and Candy, I'd have to say. It's pretty much like a classic rock nowadays kind of staple, just a signature kind of hit. Should definitely take you back to late 90s as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. But one hit wonder. The particular problem about it was Marcy Playground really had difficulty outdoing that particular hit. And it's kind of the concept about this particular album. They do definitely have a strong spot here. I would say that this dusky kind of evening malaise type stuff, the kind of opiate obsessed type stuff that just kind of feels like really dredged and that sort of fare just within like the pitch of just like evening activity of just got done with work shift, some of that type of stuff is definitely here in like a prevalent sense, and it continues to be a strong spot for them. But I just feel like the batch of hooks and overall appeal of this particular album is not as high as it was in 97, which is kind of unfortunate. I did like Sherry Frazier. It just was not as catchy as like Sex and Candy was, but it was a pretty hit and quality song, and I'd say it's too bad that song didn't chart. And then St. Joe on a School Bus was like more of like a more revved up type song that worked decently well, but just didn't have like the appeal or the overall shock value. So it does kind of have like some cutesy kind of lyrics on here. I feel like the concept of Marcy Playground is really taken seriously as if it's some sort of playground or pitches like that. I could tell by the lead single, like It's Saturday kind of has the pitch of like still being like a student or a child, some within that relative pitch. I mean, I like the concept of hearing this particular song just within the aspect of saying it's kind of some evening dredge or just reminiscing or nostalgia as far as that pitch kind of goes. But it's just kind of the concept that some of this kind of has like the playground aspect of like for children kind of in mind. But it is kind of concept. There is some outing type fare and pitches like that. Like I said, this is some excellent type fare for like evening sense and just overall work shift kind of appeal, just winding down stuff like that. But the unfortunate thing is they don't manage to establish like a super amount of strong spots or overall hooks that quite compete with some of their best songs, or at least the ubiquitous kind of Sex and Candy, I'd say. So it's a decent concept. But It's Saturday's a pretty good song. This is a song that charted pretty well. It's a decent little bop. Kind of the concept about it. It's an affable type one. I'd say it's a good follow-up hit to kind of get off this particular album, but it just kind of feels forgettable in like certain kind of senses. I'd have to say for the most part nowadays you're probably only going to hear Sex and Candy and possibly St. Joe on the School Bus, but I just would have to say it is a pretty good song. Just like the retroactive kind of offhanded sense of kind of hearing something from like the late 90s that had some decent appeal for like that kind of relative alternative rock kind of grunge. So it's a good concept. This is a decent album. This is not a bad album. It just doesn't have the widespread appeal. This lacks like a mammoth single. I want to say this album probably didn't go platinum, something like that. I'd say it's a relatively good project, and they do have a strong spot. I do like a lot of these work shift kind of dredge type songs. Great for just like job music, blue collar type fare as far as that particular kind of goes. This kind of concept of the energy behind it. They don't really have as much feistiness on this particular album in terms of like hook quality and just overall single impact, something that could have that aspect. I feel like It's Saturday came close. Definitely one of their best songs that I'd say is just kind of the concept that for the most part, they don't really attempt to replicate that or really get past like the first single as far as that particular kind of goes. There is a second single, which I looked on the discography of Marcy Playground and said that Bye Bye was the attempted second single, but I just don't think it really charted. And if it did, they had minimal kind of promotion about it. But I'll still talk about it as if it's a single. I'm going to kind of talk about the singles now. So the first single is It's Saturday. The first single is It's Saturday. This is a real nice one. It's like a good evening pep of a song, I'd say in particular. It's like a nice malaise kind of outing fun, I'd have to say. Pretty good concept, despite the fact that the lyrics are saying that they don't want to go out on a Saturday afternoon or evening or night as far as that pitch can goes. There's still some good concepts just within the instrumental kind of appeal of it to kind of say this is a good bop to kind of have. There's like some 6 p.m. kind of dredge, I'd have to say, and it continues to be a strong spot for Marcy Playground delivering upon some of these just overall evening and obsessed type songs, the just overall dredginess that kind of has that particular appeal. So this is one that just despite the concept, even if you're going back to the crib, pitches like that just to kind of unwind there and just put on like the news or football, something like that, I'd say it's a pretty good concept just to be able to have some of this and step out a bit and get ready to get some drinks in your system, or go out to a dance club, karaoke bar, something like that, flirt with some bartenders, pitches like that, I'd say some good concepts, see some buddies, this pitches like that, I'd say it's a good concept. So the lyrics of the song may be conveying one thing, but it is a pretty good bop just to get you excited, I'd say, for having some good times. Bye Bye is the second single. This is more typical kind of fanfare for Marcy Playground. This is the sort of stuff that was kind of on like Sherry Fraser. I feel like America is definitely pretty similar to Sherry Fraser, I'd have to say, but this one's kind of a more dredgy type one. It's like a hazy kind of late day commute of a song, I'd have to say. It's an after work shift kind of balance bop, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a simple day, kind of get menial tasks done kind of gem, I'd have to say in particular. It's a pretty good concept for that. So, although I do feel like Bye Bye is more dredgy and kind of sluggish compared to most 90s rock as far as the pitch kind of has with it, this is still a pretty good gem to kind of have for like some decent kind of work shift type appeal. This within that relative sense. It's just a basic kind of one to kind of have here, just for like some Tuesday, Wednesday kind of appeal. I feel like the promotion of this single is probably minimal as far as that particular pitch kind of went, but still a good one to kind of hear maybe on like an offhanded day if like your radio station picks up some of these late singles and it's overall more minimalist type ones to kind of get. But it is one just to know, just for fun fact kind of info, that this was supposedly like the second single off the album after the Lone supposed hit It's Saturday, I'd say. So it's a good concept. But basically, there's 12 songs in this particular album, not counting the dual song that's on song number 12, which is also the hidden song Old Time Pigeon Farm. I like the original Pigeon Farm, but I didn't like song 12. Just I'm usually not a fan of like those combined songs that wind up being like 8 minutes, stuff like that. I just think probably should have just been two separate songs. But basically, out of 12 songs in this particular album, and really the Old Pigeon Farm, the bonus song that's at the end of that, is not really much of a song. It's really tacked on to like the end. But I'd say out of 12 songs on here, wound up recommending 6. That's half the album here, just being able to say. It's pretty good pitch, just a decent little album here, minimal kind of promotion pitches like that, but it does have some strong spots, I would have to say in particular. Just talk about some of this. It's definitely some good dredgy type stuff, like the worship type fair and evening type malaise. It's typical of Marcy Playground. Just some good concepts. If you did miss some of that appeal of like Sex and Candy, but maybe you missed some of that appeal, Sex and Candy and Sherry Fraser, but you're tired of that particular album and CD from '97, I'd say this is a good re-up of that particular sound that has some more kind of new night, kind of has some newness type factor to kind of get reinvigorated with that particular sound. It's just some good, it's an update to it, and it's a pretty nice one. So the 6 songs I recommend on here would be It's Saturday, Bye Bye, America, Pigeon Farm, Never, and Wave Motion Gun. So to talk about some of these, like Wave Motion Gun's a pretty nice one. This is the most popular song according to Spotify, I'd have to say. Even outdoes like the single It's Saturday, I'd have to suppose. Pretty good concept for that. It's like a peppy kind of evening crawl of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a basic kind of work shift on like a better day type tune. So if you have work shift, typical fanfare, just getting done with work, some of that type pitch, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock p.m., some of those type fares, just on a better day, just maybe it's payday music, something like that. If you're getting paid today, some of that type fare, just a good concept to kind of be. I mean, it's a relatively demure kind of day, I would have to say in particular, was this kind of concept, this not being, frowny and just kind of sludgy as far as that particular kind of goes. Just kind of a relatively regular type day, just with like a modest amount of pep, just saying, hey, this is a good day, but it's just kind of basic. I'd have to say it's a good concept for that. Like I said, this payday music for that standard dredge. And this is just a good commute hit, I'd have to say. So it's just typical fanfare for Marcy Playground, just some good concepts for that. I feel like America's a real nice one. This is like a real dusky kind of heartland countryside period of a song, I'd have to say in particular. Some good stuff there. Just reminds me of Sherry Fraser. The song reminds me of Sherry Fraser from their previous America reminds me of Sherry Fraser from their previous album. I'd have to say same sort of dredgy type sluggishness that particularly was on that song. Just a simple kind of wind down malaise kind of hit, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept just for that in particular. Some good concepts there. They really are pretty much pros that like this evening kind of dredge. Just perfect music for like 4:30 to like 7:30 p.m. pitches like that, especially in like the dusky kind of summer skies as far as that particular kind of goes. Just some good concepts. They have like 5, 6, maybe even 7 type songs that have that particular pitch as far as doing that. Just real good haze as far as that goes. I feel like a breakaway from that particular style of like the evening dredge would be Pigeon Farm. This is a real nice one. This is like a good evening venue pep of a song I had to say in particular. It's like a solid unwind at like a local pub or karaoke bar, some of that type pitch I had to say in particular. And it's like some good kickback, I would definitely say. This is just some basic kind of rock noise. So this would definitely be one for stepping out a bit, just not going home and just unwinding as far as that pitch kind of particular kind of happens. This is a good concept, kind of step out a bit, mingle with your buddies, the ladies, some pitches like that. Just as far as that particular kind of goes, just having some good outing type fun. I mean, I feel like they don't really have like a nightclub type song. I really like some dance type music. It's mostly kept like a composed kind of minimum. There is a concept of just maybe going out to local pub, grabbing a beer or something like that. Just having a relatively good time, just within a kind of simple kind of sense. It's a good concept. I do like the pep of this. This reminds me, they kind of are like a cross between like Nirvana and Foo Fighters, some of those type ones. They do have some grunge type appeal on here, I'd have to say. I do appreciate the concept of some of these. Same sort of pitch that like Dave Grohl and Kurt Cobain kind of have with some of their 90s type flair. I feel like that after effect is kind of found on Marcy Playground a bit. They have that same kind of hazy kind of drawl about them. Concepts. Never is a pretty nice one. This is like a dusky kind of ruminating late day dredge of a song I'd have to say in particular. The hook is pretty similar to Foo Fighters, I would definitely have to say. and grunge music, I'd have to say in particular. And this is just like a sludgy kind of smoke one, kind of haze. If you're just smoking a swish or something like that, even though they are not full blown promoting like smoking on this particular album, I'd say this is a pretty good, nice one to just smoke around the neighborhood pit, just like that. Just some backyard kind of barbecue music for like summer affair, just residential walking around smoking one, something like that, I'd have to say. This really has some energy and pep about it. I'd say just a decent type one to kind of get here. It's pretty similar to Pigeon Farm, and I'd say not quite as peppy as Pigeon Farm or Wave Motion Gun, but still pretty nice one to kind of get some of that duskiness. There's some relatively good concepts just within that aspect, so some good concepts there. So that's the appeal of this album, in my particular opinion, I'd have to say. So talk about some of these songs I didn't recommend on here. I kind of feel like the appeal of like Secret Squirrel is just kind of a poor type one. Just didn't really appreciate the pep of that particular one. I feel like some of these revved up type songs work in some senses, like Wave Motion Gun, they nailed it in like the dusky sense. And like Never was pretty good and Pigeon Farm was pretty good. But I just feel like the more rock oriented, just kind of heavy rock type feel, Secret Squirrel just didn't really amount to much. And it's the same thing with Love Bug. That was another one where the riffage was just not quite as quality on that one. Just didn't really amount to much in terms of stepping up a bit. I feel like Rebel Sodville was just kind of another dusky type one that Marcy Playground is typically known for, but just didn't pull out the appeal as well. That one was just, I don't know, the instrumentation on that one didn't compare to some of the better ones like America and Bye Bye and It's Saturday, especially. I'd have to say just the appeal of some of that. I mean, they have a lot of these on there. I was surprised that they didn't nail Rebel Sodville, but just maybe it was just personal taste. But I look at it, it was not quite as appealing, I'd have to say. Didn't really like the aspect of Our Generation. It was just kind of another one that just kind of had some relatively kind of awkward type pep on there that just didn't really have as much appeal as far as trying to get towards it. And then All the Lights Went Out was just kind of a blurry type one. This is another one in like the evening sense. This is some more evening dredge, I'd have to say, but it just kind of has like this wavy type effect of it just within like the production type for the instrumentation of it that just is a little bit more distortion and that just is kind of an odd kind of choice as far as trying to do it. They were trying some new stuff, but effect of it was just not quite as appealing or casually like inflicting as it what is probably what it needed to be. It was just kind of one that was an odd choice, I'd have to say, which is too bad because I like the momentum of the particular song. It definitely probably could have been had it had better instrumentation, but it just was kind of a poor aspect of delivering upon it. So that's just kind of the thing. But so that's the album as far as that particular kind of goes. So me recommending 6 out of 12 songs in this particular album. I'm going to give this album like a 5.75 out of 10. Really good. There's some good concepts here. I realize that 5.75 is, you know, less than like a more super appealing type score to kind of get, but it does have some good gems on here. It's just kind of the fact that they just don't establish many strengths apart from like these evening dredge type songs and like a little bit of like decent kind of karaoke bar and pub type step out. I'd say to some basic kind of appeal, kind of a little bit more relaxed and composed version of the stuff that Three Doors Down kind of does, where Three Doors Down definitely has some pub type music and pitches like that, just a little bit more just kind of within that sort of appeal, just like a basic kind of blue collar recreation. I'd have to say it was this kind of concept that they're just a more composed type fashion, more retro type fashion that just does didn't have enough strengths to really build upon that. I definitely think that they should have really tried to promote a second single and just craft another single like It's Saturday. They should have taken some of the best aspects of what people like from Marcy Playground and amalgamated that into like another single. I don't think it would have been as tricky to have come up with another hook like It's Saturday. I mean, that's pretty much one of their best songs. I'd probably say that that's easily top 3 or top 5 of some of the best songs that Marcy Playground has done, including with Sex and Candy and Sherry Fraser being in there. But it's just they don't have any other ones that come close to that. Bye Bye is a good song, but it just doesn't have the same appeal and like the chorus as far as trying to get much radio airplay. I'd have to say, but that's this kind of concept. So 5.75 score. The social score, I'm going to give a 4.5 out of 10 just because it has some of the appeal on here. I feel like some of the singles are good, definitely, and some of this evening dredge happens to be good within a relative sense, but it's just pretty basic. Just more of just going back to the crib and unwinding there more so than stepping out. They do have some relative moments on here like Pigeon Farm, Wave Motion Gun, and Never, and a little bit of It's Saturday, but it's this kind of concept. It's just here and there as far as the outing type of feel. This is just more through the motions, kind of blue collar type fare, just standard job type music and workshop type fare, more so than having true recreational aspect with some of your buds, I'd have to say. So that's kind of the concept. So I think I said 4.5 out of 10 in terms of the social score, but that's all I'll give it, 4.5 out of 10. So in terms of the future, like Marcy Playground has not put out an album since 2009. It's kind of the pitch about it, I'd have to say. They basically are dried up by this particular stage. I mean, they have some good projects. I definitely would probably think about checking out some other ones, but at least this is a pretty good 1-2 punch here. I mean, this is not a bad album. It's kind of one note or just relatively plain type album, but it's not a bad album by any means. Kind of the same way I felt about like Marcy Playground self-titled from 97. I'd have to say that definitely had some good singles and overall appeal, but most people probably didn't look past it past Sex and Candy, I'd have to say. So this is kind of the concept. This is a good 1-2 punch. Both these albums do have the appeal about it, but it's just kind of in a limited fashion, I'd have to say. So that's the concept, but I do recommend this album. I would fuck with it. It's kind of, it seems a little bit trickier, just kind of more off to the wayside, I have to say, but I still would recommend digging them up and recommitting to fucking with them again as far as that particular kind of goes.